I'm a beta in an ABO world. The alpha I'd been taking care of for 3 years, who was in a coma, finally woke up. But everyone told him that the one who took care of him all those years was my Omega brother. My father said, "You're just a beta. He's the most promising major general in the Empire. It would never work out between you two. It's better to let your brother marry him instead." I swallowed my pride and left. But later, the major general said to me, if it was you, I'd actually be pretty happy about it. Tim woke up. It was the day after I took my first day off. Just my luck. I'd been his personal caretaker for 3 years, and the one time I take a break, he wakes up. When I got back to the estate, the butler looked at me with pity. "Mr. Brown, the master has given orders that the young master doesn't require your services for now. Why don't you rest in the guest room?" I was confused. "I've been the one taking care of him all these years. Did you hire a new nurse?" The butler hesitated, unsure of what to say. Then, a familiar voice drifted down from the stairs. "Sam, I've already terminated your contract. You don't need to come here anymore." I looked up, stunned, at the middle-aged man on the second floor, my biological father, Arthur Brown. Arthur pulled me into a corner and spoke to me in a serious tone. "Now that Tim has regained consciousness, we don't need you. William will be taking care of him from now on. All your things have been packed. We'll have them shipped to you." I clenched my fists. William, my fraternal twin brother. I was a perfectly average beta. He was the adored and pampered Omega. My dad and Arthur had us out of wedlock. After we were born, Arthur took William, the one he saw value in, and left. He abandoned my dad and me, never looking back for years. It wasn't until I was 15, when my dad got critically ill, that Arthur was forced to take me into the Brown family. And Tim, he was the eldest son of the Coles, the most powerful family in the Empire. A golden boy, born with a silver spoon in his mouth. We should have been 2 parallel lines, never meant to cross. 3 years ago, Tim was on an interstellar peacekeeping mission, fighting against the swarm. He drove them back, earning a first-class Medal of Honor and becoming the youngest major general in the Empire's history. But he was also hit by the swarm's neurotoxin and declared brain dead. Several prominent families had been lining up to arrange a marriage with the Coles, but as soon as they heard Tim was in a vegetative state, they all backed out. The Brown family was the most down on its luck of the bunch, the one with the least chance. But Arthur saw an opportunity. He immediately volunteered William for the marriage alliance. To keep the Coles satisfied, that crafty old fox pushed me forward as a placeholder. He signed an agreement with them stating that as long as Tim didn't wake up, I would stay by his side for the rest of my life. It was basically the same as marrying him. My dad had racked up massive debts when he was sick. Arthur threatened me if I didn't go to the Coles, he wouldn't help pay them off. It was more money than I could ever earn in a lifetime. So I went along with it, moving into the Cole estate and becoming Tim's private caretaker. With the Coles backing them, the Brown family quickly recovered its losses and got back on its feet. The Coles weren't cheap either. They paid me a monthly salary 10 times the market rate. Sacrificing just one of me allowed both families to get what they wanted. I accepted my fate and started to see Tim as my partner for the rest of my life. I never imagined he would wake up. And now Arthur was just going to let William take my place like it was nothing. A bitter anger rose in me. "Mr. Brown," I said sarcastically, "does your precious son even know how to take care of someone? Aren't you afraid he'll blow his cover?" I never saw Arthur as my father. I always called him Mr. Brown. Arthur said impatiently, "That's not your concern. As long as Tim doesn't figure it out, it's fine. I have to remind you to know your place. You're just a beta. He's the most promising major general in the Empire. It would never work out between you two. It's better to let your brother marry him instead." I'd never thought about marrying Tim, but having 3 years of my work stolen from me just didn't sit right. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction. "And what if I don't know my place?" I asked, feigning ignorance. Arthur's tone darkened. "Then I'll have to use force." I just stared at him, challenging him. "Well, it won't come to that," he scoffed. As he spoke, the electronic chime of the elevator sounded from nearby. We happened to be standing right next to the elevator doors. The doors slid open. William and a servant were pushing a wheelchair out, and sitting in it was none other than Tim himself. Tim's father was trailing behind them. Our two groups met unexpectedly, and everyone froze in surprise. The moment William saw me, his face went pale, and he shot a desperate look at Arthur. Tim's father, Glenn, was better at keeping his cool. He greeted us as if nothing was wrong. "Mr. Brown, what are you two doing here?" Arthur quickly replied with a respectful tone, "We were just discussing something." "I'm sorry, are we in your way?" He grabbed my arm to pull me aside, shooting me a sharp, warning glare. I couldn't be bothered with him. All my attention was on Tim. I was so used to seeing him with his eyes closed, deep in sleep. Seeing him awake now felt strange. He still looked a bit pale, but his eyes were bright and he sat up straight. I was sure he'd be back to his old self in no time. I thought I didn't care, but seeing William standing behind Tim, acting like his guardian, was like a knife in my gut. I was the one who cut his hair and nails. I was the one who bathed him, who cleaned his nose and mouth. I took care of him for 3 whole years. Who the hell was William to just swoop in and take all the credit? Anger and resentment churned in my chest. I had to bite down hard to stop myself from blurting out the truth. Tim noticed me staring and spoke up. "Who's this?" The second he spoke, William's eyes widened in panic. Arthur jumped in first. "This is our adopted son. He came to see me about something. We won't disturb you any longer. General, please take care." Terrified I'd say something I shouldn't in front of Tim, Arthur dragged me away. The moment we reached the estate's parking garage, he slapped me. Smack! An alpha's strength is no joke. The force of it knocked me to the ground, and one side of my face immediately started to swell. Arthur stood over me, glaring down with menace. "Have you come to your senses yet? Do you know your place now? The next time you see Tim, you control your eyes. Don't let him notice you." My face was numb with pain, but I stubbornly refused to touch it. I glared right back at him, defiant, and slowly got to my feet. When our eyes met, a flicker of guilt crossed his face. He muttered under his breath, his voice complicated, "Just like your dad." I brushed the dust off my hands and walked out of the garage without looking back. "Stop! Where do you think you're going?" Arthur yelled after me. I ignored him, walked out the main gate, and started down the mountain road toward the city. It wasn't until I reached a bus stop that I finally sat down and closed my weary eyes. Forcing me into the Cole family, and now kicking me out, no one ever once cared what I wanted. I was just their puppet. I let out a bitter laugh. While I was waiting, my phone rang. It was William. "What songs did you sing to Tim?" I froze. "What songs?" He said he kept hearing someone singing to him while he was unconscious. William said, his voice laced with irritation. "He wants me to sing for him." It hit me then. To pass the time while I was with Tim, I'd sometimes hum the folk songs my dad used to sing to me. I'd sing while I was massaging him, and his muscles would always seem to relax. Apparently, the songs stuck in his head. A wicked thought crossed my mind. The doctor told me to play classical music for him. I said, "Playing dumb." It was probably one of those songs. "Which one?" He said it was just one song. I could hear the panic in William's voice. He was scared of getting caught. But I had no obligation to help him cover his tracks. I played more than one song for him, I said coldly. "How would I know which one he's talking about? Don't bother me with this stuff." I hung up without another word. A short while later, someone from the Cole family came to find me. They said Glenn wanted to see me. I agreed to meet. The meeting was at the most prestigious 8-star hotel in the empire. "Sam, you've taken such good care of Tim these past few years. We've all seen it, and our whole family is grateful for your dedication," Glenn said, his words perfectly polished. "You don't have to thank me," I replied coolly. I was just doing my job. My rudeness didn't seem to faze him. He just smiled broadly. "You're a huge reason why Tim woke up so quickly. Sam, you're a very smart kid. Some things don't need to be spelled out for you to understand." I rested my chin on my hand and looked at him with feigned innocence. "I'm not smart. I'm just an average beta who never even went to college. Mr. Cole, if you have something to say, you should probably just say it. Otherwise, I might not get it." Glenn's smile never faltered. Honestly, I prefer your personality to your brother's overly dramatic nature. It's a real shame. If you were an Omega, I truly wouldn't have minded if Tim married you. His tone was calm, but his words dripped with arrogance. I threw my hands up. Thanks for the high praise, Mr. Cole, but I'm not worthy. Your time is valuable, so let's just get to the point. I like how direct you are. Glenn opened the personal terminal on his wrist comm. Name your price. Consider it compensation for the last few years. He was offering me money, which meant there were strings attached. Name my price, and then what? And then find a city far from the capital and start a new life. And it would be best if it's somewhere Tim is never likely to go. Glenn smiled. Can you do that? He wanted me to disappear from Tim's life forever. I held up 2 fingers. Sure, 20 million. 3 seconds later, a notification pinged on my account. $20 million had been deposited. I've also sent you the digital contract. Go ahead and sign it. I signed the e-contract, then stood up. Thanks for your generosity, Mr. Cole. I'll be on my way now. No need to be in such a rush, he said, stopping me. Tim and William are having their engagement party in a few days. Aren't you going to attend? I snorted. You're a brave man, Mr. Cole. Aren't you afraid I'll crash the wedding? He chuckled. Why would I be? You don't have it in you. He said he preferred my personality, but deep down, Glenn clearly looked down on me. A wolf in sheep's clothing. I grumbled to myself. Come to the party before you leave, Glenn stressed. We all want you to be there. Was this a compliance test? To see if I'd really given in? Having just pocketed a small fortune from them, I wasn't about to get difficult. In that case, thank you for the invitation, Mr. Cole, I said agreeably. I'll be there. The engagement party was held in the ballroom of the Cole family's villa. It was also Tim's first public appearance since waking up. The venue was a scene of extravagant splendor, filled with Floyd roses shipped in from an agricultural planet. Even though I was a guest of the Brown family, I was seated in a forgotten corner, forced to watch the stage on a massive 3D screen. A symphony orchestra was playing. It wasn't time for Tim and William to make their entrance yet. I was surrounded by strangers. After a few bites of the appetizer, I'd lost my appetite. I felt like a clown, being played by both the Coles and the Browns. Whatever. I showed up. I've done my part, right? I tossed my napkin on the table and got up to leave. The long hallway outside the ballroom connected the main house on one end and the greenhouse on the other. When I was taking care of Tim, I often pushed his wheelchair to the greenhouse for a walk. I liked the butterflies they kept there. Too bad I'd never get the chance again, I thought wistfully. As I headed for the exit, 3 alphas suddenly appeared in front of me. Well, if it isn't Sam Brown. What a coincidence. The alpha who spoke was big and burly, with a head of naturally curly hair. I tried to place him, but he leaned in close. What? Don't recognize me? That sleazy tone instantly brought back bad memories. He was a classmate from high school. Before I turned 15, I lived with my dad in a small fishing village far from the bustling cities. Then my dad got swindled, fell into massive debt, and got sick. With nowhere else to turn, he entrusted me to Arthur. Dad passed away shortly after, and Arthur brought me into the Brown family, sending me to the same elite academy as William. William didn't want anyone to know he had a beta twin, so he spread a rumor at school that I was the illegitimate son of a mistress. To defend William's honor, or maybe just out of boredom, a bunch of rich kids made it their mission to bully me. These 3 were part of that group. I sneered. Don't recognize you. Now get out of my way. I tried to walk around them, but Curly grabbed my arm. Then let me help you remember. He yanked me in front of him and roughly tilted my chin up. TSK, TSK, he said, his voice greasy. Such a pretty face. Too bad you're a beta. Yeah, what a waste. Another alpha sneered. Screw this. I pulled a can of pepper spray from my suit jacket and blasted him right in the face. Tear gas mixed with capsaicin coated his entire face. He let out a howl and clutched his eyes in pain. Before coming to the party, I had a feeling I might run into some people I'd rather not see. I couldn't match an alpha's strength, but I was always good at outsmarting them. Pepper spray, a taser, I always had something on me. I took off running. Get him, Curly roared. I weaved through the halls and somehow ended up outside the greenhouse. Every room in the coal estate had restricted access, requiring facial recognition to enter. I had no idea if they'd deleted my profile, but I decided to risk it. I bent down and put my face in front of the scanner by the door. The screen quickly scanned my face, and an electronic voice announced, "Access granted. Please enter." The greenhouse door clicked open. I slipped inside, and the door automatically locked behind me. The scumbags couldn't get in. They stood outside, cursing up a storm. I looked around and took a step, only to have a hand clamp over my mouth from behind. I was pulled into a warm embrace. Startled, I looked up and met the sharp, handsome features of Tim. What was he doing here? My heart pounded in my chest. Tim put a finger to his lips in a shush gesture and gave me a playful wink. My heart skipped a beat. Just then, I heard voices outside the door. Young master, where are you? Sir, it's time for you to go on stage." It was the butler and the maids. Then I heard the butler say, "Gentlemen, this is a private area. Could you please leave?" Curly answered awkwardly, "Oh, okay. We were just lost." The footsteps faded away. Just as I was about to breathe a sigh of relief, the scanner's electronic voice sounded again. "Access granted. Please enter." The greenhouse door opened. The butler and maids were coming in to look for him. Tim wrapped an arm around my waist and quickly pulled me behind a large cluster of hydrangeas. His hand was still covering my mouth and nose, and I could barely breathe. This guy had only been awake for a couple of weeks, but he was already this strong. I couldn't push him off. I pinched the back of his hand hard and pointed to my nose. Tim, who had been cautiously watching the entrance, looked down at me. He paused for a second, then understood, moving his hand down so I could breathe. The staff searched everywhere in the greenhouse, walking right past our hiding spot several times. We were pressed together, his chest against my back, his body heat seeping through our clothes. I was so tense my whole body went rigid, a thin layer of sweat breaking out on my back. I knew Tim's hands too well. Years of weapons training had left them rough with thin calluses. Over the past 3 years, I had held those hands countless times, massaging his pressure points and loosening his joints. My feelings had shifted from initial resentment to resignation and finally to acceptance. Sometimes I'd even comfort myself, thinking at least Tim's handsome and he can't bully me or give me a hard time. It was like taking care of a giant doll. My mind started to wander. The staff found nothing and eventually left. The electronic lock clicked shut, and I snapped back to reality. Tim still had his hand over my mouth. I jabbed my elbow back into his ribs. He finally let go. "Oh, sorry about that. Didn't mean to be so rough." He stepped back, holding his hands up in a mock surrender. I took a deep breath, loosening my tie to get some air. Tim was a full head taller than me. He tilted his head and leaned down to look at me. "You're with the Browns, right? How did you get in here?" I had been annoyed with him, but his question hit me like a ton of bricks. My confidence evaporated. I avoided his gaze and told a half-truth. "I don't know. I just tried the scanner and it let me in." "Maybe your system is bugged?" I threw the blame back on him. "My family's security system is on par with the Department of Defense." Tim pressed. "Have you registered your face here before?" "Maybe it mistook me for William," I mumbled. Even though we had different secondary genders, William and I looked quite similar. I was just a bit taller and he had fairer skin. Tim's eyes scanned my face like a high-tech device. "No way," he said seriously. "You two don't look alike." He added, "You're way easier on the eyes." What a smooth talker. "I'm not falling for the same tricks you use on Omegas," I thought to myself. "Is that so? Well, I have to go." "Excuse me." I didn't want to argue with him anymore. I turned to leave. "Wait, you can't go out yet." Tim pulled me back. I glared at him. He just shrugged. "They're all looking for me out there. You can't leave right now." "I won't tell anyone," I said, frustrated. "I'm going home. Please let go, General. You're my accomplice now. Can't let you go." "Accomplice? I have nothing to do with you. Let go." I snapped, trying to pry his fingers off me. He wouldn't budge. I couldn't break free, so in a fit of desperation, I kicked at him. Tim sidestepped the kick. My plan backfired spectacularly, and I lost my balance and started to fall. Watch out. Tim grabbed my waist, but he lost his footing too, and we both went down. Thud. I landed on top of Tim, his chest breaking my fall as we tumbled into a bed of roses. Petals flew everywhere, and a cloud of butterflies fluttered up, dancing around us. My hands were pressed against his chest. I stared at him, frozen. My reflection was in his dark brown eyes. Our noses were almost touching, our breaths mingling in the air. But I didn't have time to savor the tender, ambiguous moment. My first thought was he just recovered. What if he got hurt from the fall? I scrambled off him and helped him sit up. How do you feel? Does your head hurt? I pushed his hair back to check for any bumps. Then I started checking the joints in his arms and legs. How do you feel? Did you hit anything? Tim started laughing. That's when I realized I was overreacting. I quickly composed myself. Well, if you're okay, then, I stammered. I'm leaving now. Take care. Wait. Tim wrapped an arm around my waist and pulled me close, his eyes fixed on me. Why are you so worried about me? Tell me, have we met before? No. I denied it without a second thought. To get away, I had to remind him, General, this is your engagement party. Are you really planning to hide in here all night? Tim shrugged. It's boring in here. I want to leave. Then go. I'm leaving. Before I could finish, he suddenly threw me over his shoulder. What are you doing? I was horrified. I'm escaping, and I'm taking an accomplice with me. Tim's tone was final. He walked toward a pavilion in the corner of the greenhouse. I yelled at him to put me down, but he ignored me. There was a thing like this? I was speechless. Tim carried me effortlessly down a secret passage. I clung to his back, feeling uneasy. What are you doing? Don't do anything crazy. At the end of the tunnel was a maglev hoverbike. Tim set me down on the bike. Where are you taking me? I stuttered. I told you we're escaping. He casually put a helmet on my head. Tim put on his own helmet, swung his leg over the bike, and took off like a shot. As soon as the bike started, a spherical protective shield formed around us. It was my first time on a vehicle like this. The supersonic speed terrified me, and all I could do was cling tightly to Tim's waist. Half an hour later, Tim parked the bike by a breezy riverbank. I clumsily took off my helmet. Tim helped me off the bike, his hands on my waist. I saw a red light flashing on his wrist comm. Someone was trying to contact him. Tim had ditched his own engagement party. Things back at the villa were probably in chaos. I took Glenn's money. I shouldn't be mixed up with him. I tried again. General, I have to go. When you're done having fun, you can go back on your own. I put the helmet down on the bike. Tim asked, where are you going? That's none of your business. Are you going home? Let me come hide out with you, he said with a grin. I never knew he could be so shameless. He was a prodigy, excelling in both academics and combat since he was a kid. At 18, he got into the Interstellar Military Academy with the top score. He aced every military and academic course, breaking the Academy's historical records. The Academy had an acceptance rate of 1 in 1,000. You couldn't get in by pulling strings. Every cadet there was a future leader. Until he was 22, Tim's life was smooth sailing. Everyone looked up to him. When he was declared brain dead, even the Supreme Commander expressed his regret. People said the heavens were jealous of his talent, that the brilliant die young. But he came back, fully revived. I just couldn't reconcile this legendary young hero with the shameless guy clinging to me right now. General, we're strangers, I said, annoyed. You don't even know my name. If you need to hide, wouldn't a hotel or a friend's place be a better choice? I didn't understand what he was running from. Did he not want to get engaged to William? If so, why? He answered my questions one by one. What do you mean I don't know? Your name is Sam Brown. Your father was lying last time when he said you were adopted. You're William's older brother. Hotels require ID, so my location would be exposed. As for friends, I've been asleep for 3 years. I'd feel bad bothering people I haven't talked to in so long. I almost choked. So you feel fine bothering me? Tim looked completely shameless. Yeah. I don't know why, but I just felt a connection with you the moment I saw you. Feels like we've known each other for a long time. My heart skipped a beat. You're just imagining things, I said with a nervous laugh. He pressed his advantage. Let me come to your place. Once things cool down, I'll leave. I promise I won't cause you any trouble. Forget it. I refused flatly, deciding to be direct with him. I'm leaving the capital tomorrow. I can't take you in. Find someone else. I had already bought my train ticket for the next morning. I was going back to my dad's hometown. When Tim heard that, his eyes lit up. Leaving the capital? Where are you going? I backed away cautiously. What are you thinking? Take me with you. Tim opened his personal terminal, muttering to himself. It's okay if you don't tell me. I have the clearance to find out. You can't abuse your power, I yelled. That's my private information. Are you going to tell me? Or should I look it up? He said, acting like a spoiled brat. Either way, I'm sticking with you. You need an ID to buy a ticket, I argued. Aren't you afraid of being found? I'll just follow you in my vehicle, he said with a smug I've got it all figured out look. He pointed to his hover bike. This bike is custom made. It can go 30,000 kilometers on a single charge. Want to try it? I could even give you a ride. No! Stop following me. I stormed off. Tim followed slowly behind me on his bike. I thought he was just messing around, but even after I got on a driverless bus, he was still there. How do I get rid of this guy? He's like glue. I stuck my head out the window, and he waved at me triumphantly. I buried my face in my hands. I'm screwed. He's latched on to me. I stood in front of the motel, staring at Tim. He stared back. Just go. I'm not letting you come up, I said firmly. Tim shrugged. That's fine. I'll just wait out here. You have to come out eventually. I can't believe you'd wait all night. After a shower, I walked over to the window in my pajamas. Under the streetlight, Tim's shadow, leaning against his hoverbike, was stretched long. I glanced at the clock on the wall. It was 11 at night. Let's see how long he can last. I turned off the lights and got into bed. I tried to force myself to sleep, but I just tossed and turned. Couldn't help it. Every half hour, I went to the window to check on him. Tim had gone from leaning against the bike to lying on top of it, playing a game on his personal terminal. He's still not leaving? Frustrated, I yanked the curtains shut. I lay on my side, wide awake. Suddenly, a clap of thunder echoed outside. Thunder? Is it going to rain? I shot up out of bed like a spring. I threw on a jacket, slipped on my slippers, and hurried outside. By the time I got there, raindrops were already starting to fall. When Tim saw me, he gave me a carefree smile. My feelings were a complicated mess. Fine, you can stay for one night. I begged the front desk clerk, telling him Tim was a friend staying for just one night and asking if he could bend the rules about checking his ID. The clerk had Tim show his digital ID to confirm he wasn't a problem, and then let him stay. Getting a new room would have required registration. Squeezing into mine avoided that hassle. Tim sauntered into my room like he owned the place. I pulled out all the extra blankets, planning to make a bed for him on the floor. Seeing this, Tim put a hand to his head and said weakly, "My head feels a little dizzy. I wonder if it was from that fall earlier." My hands paused mid-blanket folding. He forced a smile. "It's okay. I can sleep on the floor. It's just one night. A little cold air shouldn't be a problem." After he laid it on that thick, how could I pretend not to get it? I sighed, looked up at the ceiling, and pointed to the bed. "You take the bed. I'll sleep on the floor." "There's no need for that," Tim said firmly. "Why don't we just sleep together?" "Don't worry. I promise I won't cross any lines." His words provoked me. He made it sound like I was the one worried, like I was flattering myself. "What do I have to worry about?" I sneered. "I'm not an omega who'll get pregnant from a single touch." The consequence of my bravado was me curling up in a tight ball on the very edge of the bed. I kept my back to him the whole time. We each had our own blanket, so at least there was no physical contact. How did things end up like this? I still felt like I was in a dream. The person I thought I'd never see again for the rest of my life was now snoring away in the same bed as me. I stayed awake until after 2 in the morning before finally succumbing to exhaustion. I dreamed about the times I took care of him. Tim had pitched a tent under the blankets. He was still unconscious, but his face was flushed an unnatural red, and his heart rate was terrifyingly fast. I didn't know what to do, so I called his primary care physician for help. The doctor told me he's in his rut. You have to help him or his body will suffer damage. My voice trembled. What should I do? Give him suppressants? Suppressants only treat the symptoms. If you force it down now, his next rut will be even worse. You're a man too, right? Do I need to teach you how to help him? Taking care of someone in a coma, this was part of the job. I had just been avoiding it. Steeling myself, I swallowed my shame and helped him out. Right, we're both men. Nothing to be embarrassed about. I had given myself a pep talk. Alphas were really something else in that department. The first time was manageable. After that, every time I'd be sweating buckets and my hand would be aching by the time it was over. One time I worked for over an hour and couldn't get it done. Tim was in agony, his blood pressure and heart rate about to redline. I was so frustrated I was cursing. With no other options, I had to swallow my pride and, why am I dreaming about something so humiliating? My consciousness slowly returned from the hazy dream. I blinked my tired eyes, and my blurry vision gradually sharpened. I stared in disbelief at the handsome face just inches from mine. Somehow, Tim and I were now under the same blanket, and my head was resting on his arm. I realized Tim must have crawled into my blanket. I didn't dare breathe, slowly inching my body backward. The moment I moved, Tim's brow furrowed. His eyelashes fluttered, and he slowly opened his eyes. I was about to say, get back on your side, when he looked at me still half asleep. He let out a soft, sleepy hum, pulled me closer, and buried his face in the crook of my neck. My toes curled in embarrassment. Tim wrapped his arms and legs around me like a giant golden retriever, nuzzling against me. Damn it, where do you think you're rubbing? The images from my dream were still vivid in my mind, and now Tim was pulling this. Furious and flustered, I kicked him. Get off. It was breakfast time. I listlessly chewed on my breakfast wrap. Across from me, Tim was eating with gusto. His carefree attitude just made me angrier. General, I said with a long face, your little runaway game is over. You should go home before you cause a real mess. I'm not going back. He was completely unfazed. I'm sticking with you. Wherever you go, I go. Don't even think about shaking me. I was speechless. How did I get stuck with this guy? My voice dripped with sarcasm. Go back. Your precious fiancé is probably crying his eyes out at home. If you're not going to think about yourself, at least think about your family. Tim pouted. We're not officially engaged. He's not my fiancé. I didn't want to meddle in his affairs, but I needed to find the root of the problem to solve it. Why won't you go back? You don't want to get engaged? I do, just not to him, Tim said, half joking. If it was you, I'd actually be pretty happy about it. I almost choked on my wrap. What did he mean by that? Does he know something? Remembering the $20 million I'd accepted, I felt a fresh wave of guilt. I didn't dare look him in the eye. I laughed self-deprecatingly. Tim waved it off. So what if you're a beta? You can still get pregnant if we do it enough. I'm pretty confident in my abilities. Want to give it a try? As he spoke, he unbuttoned his shirt collar and winked at me. If some sleazy guy did that, I'd want to punch him. But on Tim, it wasn't awkward at all. In fact, it was incredibly hot. Flustered, I grabbed the wrap from the table and stuffed it in his mouth. Shut up. I've lost my appetite. Talking dirty first thing in the morning. My image of him as a hero was crumbling. Whatever. What hero? He's still a man. Alpha's minds are always in the gutter. I should have known. Tim was dead set on following me, and I didn't have the guts to let him chase a train on his hoverbike. He'd been awake for less than a month. If anything happened to him, 10 of my lives wouldn't be enough to pay for it. In the end, I gave in. I canceled my ticket and let Tim drive me to my destination. We could stop at motels along the way so he didn't have to drive nonstop. Every 4 hours, I made him pull over and rest. It almost felt like we were eloping. Just a few days ago, I was joking with Glenn, asking if he was afraid I'd crash the wedding. He said I didn't have it in me. And now, I checked my account balance on my terminal. Of the 20 million Glenn gave me, I'd already spent almost half paying compensation to the villagers and covering backed up legal fees. I closed the app, feeling helpless. I tried to reassure myself. I didn't break the contract. Tim was the one who insisted on following me. I tried to get rid of him plenty of times. And I wasn't going to contact the Coles or the Browns. They never respected me. If they're so capable, they can figure out how to get Tim back themselves. 2 days later, we arrived at our destination. The place was called Shanzue, one of the few remaining natural fishing villages, with a permanent population of less than 100 people. This remote, underdeveloped little village was where my dad and I grew up. I returned to the 2-story house my dad left me, with Tim following behind, looking around curiously. The house was right by the sea and had been empty for a long time. The air inside was thick with the smell of damp mildew. The paint was peeling off the walls, and the window frames were rusted. If you can't get used to it, General, you're free to leave at any time, I told him. Tim shrugged. What's this? I've been through wilderness training. I've stayed in much worse places. After settling in, I went to the village chief's house to get registered. From now on, I was an official resident of Z Village. When I came out, Tim was leaning against the seawall, waiting for me. A few villagers had gathered around him, asking all sorts of questions. You're so tall and strong. Are you an alpha? One of the aunties asked, eyeing Tim with admiration. Tim readily admitted it. The villagers got excited, chattering away. This is the first time I've ever seen such a handsome alpha. Yeah, he's better looking than a celebrity. Celebrities are nothing. The guys in the Navy are the handsome ones. Young man, are you in the military too? The villagers in Shanzue were all betas. The only alphas they ever saw were the naval officers stationed nearby. Omegas were even rarer. Most villagers had only ever seen them on TV. The auntie then asked him, are you Sam's boyfriend? Sam's a beta, but he's just as good looking as any Omega. Another uncle chimed in, Sam's dad was an Omega. Sam can probably have kids too. The conversation was taking a weird turn. I quickly walked over. Sorry, everyone, we have to go. Let's chat next time. I gave Tim a look. He waved goodbye to the villagers and happily joined me. As we walked away, Tim suddenly turned back and shouted to the crowd, I'm not his boyfriend. I'm his fiancé. Cough, cough. I choked on my own spit. I pounded my chest and glared at him. What the hell are you talking about? I'm stating a fact, Tim said, completely serious. I stormed off in a huff. When we got back to the house, there were several large boxes piled by the door. My art supplies had arrived. Tim helped me carry them inside, and I started unpacking. You can paint? He asked curiously, squatting beside me. I've been painting since I was a kid. I had planned on going to art school for college. I even passed the entrance exams. If it wasn't for Arthur forcing me to be Tim's caretaker, I planned to paint murals on the villagers' houses. It would beautify the village and maybe even turn it into a popular spot for tourists. The plan had already been approved, so I could start tomorrow. Tim pestered me to see my paintings, so I had to pull up my work from the photo album on my terminal. He was full of praise. This is really high-level stuff. With a little marketing, you could definitely be the next big thing in the art world. Yeah, a genius beta artist. That's a great headline. Generally, beta was synonymous with average. Omegas were known for their artistic talent, and alphas were symbols of strength. Those were just societal labels. I'd had a talent for painting since I was little. Even when I transferred to that elite high school full of geniuses, my grades were always in the top 10. But just because I was a beta, I had to work 10, even 100 times harder than an omega just to get recognized. Whatever. I should have accepted my fate long ago. Seeing me quiet, Tim asked, your dad was an omega? I glanced at him. Haven't you already looked into the Brown family's drama? With your clearance, what can't you find out? Tim grinned. That's different. I want to hear it from you. My dad was an omega, and my grandpa was a beta. My grandpa was originally the chief of Z Village. He fell in love with a wealthy Omega lady and they had my dad. After my grandpa passed away, my dad took over as chief. He saw that the villagers' houses were old and the roads were in terrible shape, so he wanted to partner with a tourism company to renovate the village. But they set a trap for him. The contract he signed was actually to sell the land. The villagers were facing eviction and came to our house demanding answers. The tourism company then turned around and sued my dad for breach of contract, demanding $300 million in damages. My dad ran himself ragged trying to solve the problem, selling off all our assets. He managed to scrape together a few tens of millions, but he collapsed from exhaustion. That's when Arthur stepped in and negotiated with the company. And that's also when I was taken into the Brown family. To pay off my dad's debt, I signed a contract with Arthur and went to the coal estate to take care of Tim. The village was saved, but I had to repay the villagers for all the hardship they'd endured on my dad's behalf. I also had to fulfill my dad's last wish, to rebuild the village houses, roads, and reservoir. That's where most of the money from Glenn went. I gave Tim the short version of the story, emphasizing, my life from now on is dedicated to protecting this village. Once you're done playing, you should go back. We're from different worlds. This village isn't a military fortress. What does it need protection from? Tim said casually, I can help you file an application to have this place designated as a protected heritage village. I guarantee no one will dare mess with it then. Spoken like someone from the ruling class. I've lived at the bottom my whole life. I would never have thought of such an elegant solution. But why would Tim help me for free? I don't want to owe you anything, I said stubbornly. I'll figure it out myself. The next day, I put on my straw hat, got my toolbox, set up my scaffolding, and got to work. Just priming the walls white was a huge job. Tim took over the unskilled manual labor. I got into the groove and quickly found my rhythm again. Being back in the place where I grew up made me feel exceptionally relaxed. I hummed a little tune as I mixed my colors. After a few strokes, I looked over and met Tim's focused gaze. He had stopped working at some point and was just standing there watching me. What's wrong? I asked, surprised. What was that song you were just singing? It didn't register at first. A folk song. The Fisher Girl. I stopped mid-sentence. Right, that song. I used to sing it all the time when I was taking care of Tim. When William asked me about it, I played dumb. I couldn't quite meet his eyes. Luckily, he didn't press the issue. The sun was high in the sky. It was time for lunch. Tim and I took a break and went to the village chief's house for a meal. The chief's wife was a warm-hearted woman who gave us heaping bowls of rice and kept telling us to eat more. As we were eating, a few villagers came in, arguing loudly. The man in the lead started complaining before the chief could even ask. Chief, when are you going to seal up that Devil's Horn cave? It's almost June. The other villagers chimed in. Yeah. Seal it up. Otherwise, we won't even dare to go outside. No one goes to the pier over there anymore. Why haven't you sealed it yet? The chief patiently tried to calm them down. I've already applied to the town government. It has to go through approvals. We can't seal it until the official notice comes down. The villagers were not satisfied and demanded the chief take people to seal it immediately. The chief was overwhelmed. I leaned over and quietly asked the chief's wife about it. The cave got its name because it looked like the horns on a devil's head. I used to play there with my friends when I was a kid. The old woman's face was etched with worry. 3 years ago, in June, a father and son disappeared near Devil's Horn. They never even found their bodies. Then, for 2 years straight, people went missing every June. This May now, and everyone's worried someone else will disappear. Didn't you call the police? We did, but you know how the police are around here, she said helplessly. A couple of people disappearing each year doesn't get much attention. They just say they were probably swept away by the waves. Something felt off. Is there any connection between the people who disappeared? I asked. No connection. Men and women, mostly young people and children. No elderly people, though. After the chief finally managed to calm everyone down and send them away, I asked if he needed help. He just waved his hand. This is a tough one. For now, we'll just tell everyone to stay away from that area. I hope the official approval comes through soon. In the afternoon, Tim and I went back to painting. After a full day of craning my neck and holding my arm up, I collapsed onto the sofa when we got home. Tim came over and started massaging my neck and shoulders. I tilted my head back, looking up at him. Felt so surreal. A month ago, I was massaging him while he was in a coma, and now the roles were reversed. Tim's face was truly something to behold. Even from this terrible angle, he was breathtakingly handsome. A strong jawline, a high-nosed bridge, and deep-set eyes. How could someone be this good-looking? I got lost in his features. Tim suddenly leaned down and kissed my forehead. My whole body went stiff. I held my breath. He rubbed his new stubble against my skin and whispered, his voice low and intimate, "If you keep looking at me like that, I'm gonna eat you up. Eat my foot. If you're hungry, go eat dinner." I rubbed my tingling forehead and grumbled as I walked into the kitchen. For the next week, Tim and I painted murals every day. Once I got the hang of it, I could finish a whole wall in about 2 days. One day, I had breakfast ready, but Tim hadn't come downstairs yet. He was usually up even earlier than me, doing his military exercises in the yard and going for a run before breakfast. I had to go up to his room to get him. Tim was lying in bed, looking listless. I felt his forehead. "Do you have a fever?" I got a thermometer to check. His temperature was a little high, but not quite a fever. "I'm fine," he said weakly. "I just need to lie down for a bit. You should get going. Don't worry about me. Okay, breakfast is ready. You can eat when you get up." I didn't think much of it and hurried out. Without Tim tagging along today, I felt off kilter, like something was missing. I was distracted, and my painting progress was less than half of what I usually accomplished. Around noon, the sky grew dark, and a strong wind picked up. It looked like it was about to rain. I quickly packed up my supplies. I rushed home, and just as I stepped inside, the sky opened up in a downpour. I ran upstairs and burst into his room, about to call his name. A dark figure lunged at me, wrapping me in a fierce embrace. A searing heat enveloped me, his hot breath ghosting over my ear. A shiver ran down my spine. "Tim, what are you?" Tim's head shot down and he bit my lips hard. He kissed me wildly, his mouth devouring mine. I was caught completely off guard, my mind a chaotic mess. He carried me toward the bed and pinned me underneath him. Finally clicked. He was in his rut. Alphas go into rut 3 to 5 times a year. While Tim was in a coma, his bodily functions had slowed, so it only happened about twice a year. Now that he was awake and his strength had returned, his rut was hitting him faster and harder than before. His pheromones must have been getting stronger for the past few days. But being a beta, I couldn't smell them at all. Tim ripped at my clothes. With my strength, fighting back was like a mayfly trying to shake a tree. Fear gripped my heart. My eyes turned red, and I begged him. My voice choked with sobs. "Don't. Please, don't. I'll get you suppressants." Tim panted heavily. "No, I can't. I'm a bee." The rest of my words were crushed and swallowed by his kiss. I tasted salt in my mouth. I suddenly realized I was crying. I never cry. No matter how much I was bullied, I never shed a tear. The last time I cried was when my dad died. I couldn't believe Tim had pushed me to my breaking point. When he realized what was happening, he pulled away. I was shaking, wiping the tears from my cheeks with the back of my hand. The veins on Tim's forehead and neck were bulging. He was fighting his own desires. He was in agony. He asked me, his voice trembling, "Do you hate me? Do you not want me?" I shook my head. My voice choked. "I don't hate you. I'm scared." I didn't hate Tim. I never had. I always knew how I felt deep down. But I was afraid to accept him. I didn't have the courage to fight the whole world for him. Tim seemed to sense my hesitation. His touch became incredibly gentle as he caressed my cheek. "Don't be scared. Leave everything to me. I'll protect you." Could I trust him? It seemed I had no other choice. Whatever. I was all alone anyway. I had nothing left to lose. I'll just treat this as a high-stakes gamble. I slowly closed my eyes. Tim kissed me again, much more gently this time. An alpha in rut is truly terrifying. My entire body ached. I was curled up under the covers. A mess. Tim, on the other hand, was fully recharged. He even went out and bought a fish to make soup. The village chief's wife helped me clean it. I just added some ginger and cooking wine. Here, try it. He brought me a bowl of fragrant, milky fish soup. Tim carefully fed me, spoonful by spoonful, and I drank it all. I was touched. The great Major General of the Empire, the eldest son of the Cole family, was cooking for me. It was exactly what he deserved. He had worked me over so much my back was killing me and my voice was hoarse. Change the sheets, I rasped, and wash them while the sun's out. Yes, ma'am. You haven't done the laundry from the past few days either. Wash that too. Yes, ma'am. And clear the fallen leaves in the yard. Yes, ma'am. Good. If I wasn't gonna boss him around now, when would I? I rested for a day, then went back to painting the next. I was about 2/3 done and needed to speed things up. As for Tim, ever since his lecherous side had been fully unleashed. During the day, whenever we were alone, he'd find an excuse to grab me and start making out. He even moved his pillows and blankets into my room, shamelessly pestering me for sex every night. Alphas are insatiable. I was seriously worried if my body could handle his daily demands. Fortunately, I've always been in good shape, and so far we seem to be very compatible in that department. If I were an Omega, I'd probably be pregnant by now. The good thing about being a Beta is that I don't have to worry about that. Even if things don't work out between us, at least there won't be any lasting consequences, or so I told myself. June arrived, and my mural project was nearing completion. One day, I was prepping a wall while Tim was squatting under the scaffolding, mixing colors for me. An old man ran up to him for help. Tim, my boat's run aground. A few of us can't push it. Can you come help? You should go, I said quickly. Tim was as strong as an ox. He would be very useful right now. He put down his brush and went with the old man. I finished the painting by myself. After the last stroke, I moved the scaffolding, opened the camera on my terminal, and took a picture of the finished mural. As I was taking the photo, I noticed 2 little boys carrying fishing rods and baskets running past in the distance. There weren't many kids in the village. These 2 were brothers, the older one named Mo and the younger one Kai. The place they were heading was, I squinted, Devil's Horn? I immediately followed them on high alert. By the time I caught up, the 2 boys were already at the edge of Devil's Horn Cave. The local villagers avoided this place, so it was usually deserted, the rocks covered in barnacles. Mo, Kai, get back here, I yelled. The kids jumped, startled, and turned around. Didn't your parents tell you not to come here? I said sternly. Come back with me right now. We're just gonna pick up some shells. We'll be quick, Mo said stubbornly. I took a step toward them. That doesn't matter. Come back with me now, or I'm telling the village chief. Just a minute, Mo refused to cooperate. As we were arguing, a massive, unidentifiable creature shot out of Devil's Horn Cave. The thing was over 2 meters long, its body divided into a head, thorax, and abdomen. Its whole body was a slick, glossy black, with 6 legs and a pair of bent antennae. There was a swarm creature here. My scalp tingled with fear. The creature scuttled toward us on its 6 legs at an alarming speed. Run! I screamed without a second thought. The 2 kids shrieked in terror. Mo took off running, but Kai was frozen in place. I rushed forward and scooped up Kai, about to make a run for it. A stream of white silk shot out from behind me, wrapping around me tightly. Everything went black, and I lost consciousness. When I woke up, I was in a dark, damp cave. I was like a cocoon, wrapped in white silk and hanging upside down from the ceiling. Mo and Kai were hanging next to me, both unconscious. The memory of what happened came flooding back, and I was instantly wide awake. We've been captured by the swarm. So the people who went missing at Devil's Horn, they were all captured by them. I forced myself to stay calm. I surveyed my surroundings. There were no creatures in sight. The cave floor was covered in moss and the rotting remains of various sea creatures, and it stank. They are social creatures with a strict division of labor. The one that attacked us was probably a worker drone. If we're missing, Tim and the villagers will definitely be looking for us. It's June. With Tim's sharp mind, he'll surely think of the devil's horn disappearances. But I can't just sit here and wait. If the swarm decides to eat us before they arrive, it'll all be for nothing. The first thing to do is get free. I felt along my pant leg and found the paint scraper in my pocket. I twisted my body, arching my back to get the scraper out. Gritting my teeth, I put all my strength into my right hand and used the scraper to cut at the silk threads. Once I made a small tear, the rest was easy. The threads snapped apart. I fell to the ground. I didn't even dare to breathe too heavily. I tore off the remaining silk and went to free Mo and Kai. They slowly came to. When Kai saw the gloomy cave, he was about to burst into tears. I quickly covered his mouth. "Don't be scared. I'll get you out of here," I whispered. 5-year-old Kai nodded, his eyes welling up with tears. "Do you have anything on you for self-defense?" I asked them. The boys pulled out a small shovel and a small knife. The knife was for scraping barnacles, and it was much sharper than my scraper. I took their tools, listened carefully, and held out my hand to feel the direction of the wind to figure out where the exit was. I held Kai's hand, and 8-year-old Mo clutched the hem of my shirt. The three of us tiptoed out. The swarm's nest had multiple sections. We were probably in their food storage area. As we passed by an opening, we suddenly saw a horrifying creature lying inside. I gasped. Mo and Kai covered their mouths to stifle their screams. I flattened myself against the wall and carefully peeked in. That creature was even bigger than the worker drone. Its lower body was a massive oval shape, like it was covered by a giant quilt. That was its abdomen. Its abdomen was stretched almost translucent, and I could faintly see eggs inside. It hit me then. June is the queen's egg-laying season. The soldier drones were capturing humans to feed her. So all those missing people ended up as the queen's dinner. The queen was terrifying, but her movement was restricted, so she wasn't an immediate threat. I led the 2 kids and backed away, my heart pounding in my chest. We had only taken a few steps when a soldier drone suddenly appeared on the cave wall. The soldier was 3 meters long, with incredibly hard mandibles that could easily crush rock. Kai screamed and burst into tears. I quickly pushed them both out of the way. The soldier lunged at me, its mandibles wide open. My survival instinct kicked in. I quickly grabbed its antenna and, without hesitation, sliced it off with the small knife. The antennae are the swarm's eyes and ears. The soldier immediately started stumbling around like a drunk, unable to keep its balance. I ran to Mo and Kai, picked up Kai, grabbed Mo's hand, and made a break for the exit. I heard a rustling sound behind me. The swarm was catching up. I stood in front of the boys and yelled, "Go!" I drew the knife and charged toward the soldiers, ready to die. I had to buy time for the kids to escape. "I'll take them on." The soldiers' barbed claws slashed at me, leaving cuts all over my body. Ignoring the pain, I slid under one of the soldiers' abdomens. Their bodies are covered in a hard exoskeleton, but their abdomens are their weak spot. I raised the knife and plunged it into the soldier's belly. The soldier's abdomen ruptured, splattering a sticky fluid everywhere. The fluid was mildly corrosive, and my arm was burned. The soldier let out a piercing shriek and thrashed on the ground. I scrambled to my feet to run, but 2 soldiers leaped up. One tackled me from behind, while the other blocked my path. The soldier in front of me opened its bloody maw. I closed my eyes, resigned to my fate. "Tim, goodbye." In a flash, there was a whooshing sound. I opened my eyes in surprise. The soldier in front of me was engulfed in flames. It collapsed in agony, its claws flailing. The swarm is afraid of fire. The soldier pinning me down immediately recoiled and backed away. Still in shock, I got back to my feet. "Sam!" Tim charged in like a god descending from the heavens, a weed burner strapped to his back. Overjoyed and crying, I stumbled into his arms. He held me with one arm and asked how many more of them are in there. "I don't know, but I saw a queen and some worker drones." "Got it. Let's get out of here first." Tim supported me as we retreated. He practically carried me out. Once we were safe, I remembered to ask him, How did you know there were swarm creatures here? It was brilliant of him to think of bringing a flamethrower. The area where you disappeared had traces of those damn bugs. I recognized it immediately. The cave entrance was surrounded by villagers. Mo and Kai were crying in their parents' arms. When Tim came out carrying me, he anxiously asked, "Is there a hospital here?" "There's a clinic about 5 kilometers away." Tim was about to take me there. A few men in police uniforms ran up and started scolding him. "You can't just act on your own. Yeah, the firefighters aren't even here yet. You can't just go in there by yourself." Tim didn't waste time arguing. He opened his personal terminal and showed them his military ID. "I am Tim Cole of the Imperial Armed Forces, Special Space Operations Command. Swarm creatures have been discovered in Devil's Horn Cave. I am officially taking command of this area." The local cops' jaws dropped when they saw his rank. The villagers were silent with awe. Half an hour later, hundreds of Navy Special Forces soldiers arrived. Military medics set up a medical bay near Devil's Horn. I was lying on a cot with an IV drip. The medics had given me first aid. Besides the burns from the fluid, which were pretty bad, the rest were just superficial wounds. Tim stayed by my side the whole time. A colonel came in, saluted, and asked, "General, what are your orders?" Tim's decision was swift. Seal all exits to the cave, including any underwater openings. Use incendiary bombs and shotguns for the assault. Leave no survivors. Tim was about to head to the front line. I grabbed his arm, worried. "Don't fight them yourself. Can't you just command from the rear?" I remembered how he was almost killed by their neurotoxin. He held my hand to comfort me. "It's okay. These are just second-generation Great Maw drones. They're not hard to deal with. You get some sleep. When you wake up, I'll be back." Tim kissed my forehead and left the medical bay. He was right. It only took them half a day to wipe out all the swarm creatures in Devil's Horn, with 0 casualties. The discovery of the swarm within the Empire was a major incident. The government took it extremely seriously, immediately imposing a news blackout and sending specialists to Shanzhou to follow up. Tim and I were brought back to the capital. The military's medical equipment was top of the line. My injuries had already healed, leaving only a faint scar on my arm. But because I'd had close contact with the swarm, I needed to be observed further in a special military sanatorium. Tim was ordered back to his base to debrief on the incident. "The digital report has already been sent." Tim yelled at his adjutant over the video call. "I'm still on leave. I need to be with my husband." The adjutant knew how to pick out the important details. "When did you get married, sir?" he asked, surprised. "We're married. Just haven't had the wedding yet." I listened awkwardly from the side, quietly urging him, "Just go. I'll be taken care of here. It doesn't matter if you're here or not." The adjutant heard my voice and immediately tried to be friendly. "Hello, Mom. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm the general's adjutant. My last name is Lee. Don't talk to my husband." Tim cut him off. With my persuasion, Tim reluctantly returned to base, expected back in 2 days. I was living in a luxurious private room at the sanatorium, with all my needs met. Specialists came to check on me every day. Z Village was now occupied by the military and scientists. The villagers were not allowed to leave, and I hadn't heard any news. 2 days later, I was bored in my room, watching a 3D movie. A nurse came in. "Mr. Brown, you have visitors." Visitors? Wasn't Tim supposed to be back? I walked out to the attached sitting room and saw a group of unexpected people. It was Arthur, William, and Tim's parents. The guilt and fear I felt lasted only for a second. After surviving an encounter with the swarm, a scene like this didn't scare me anymore. Judging by their hostile expressions, it looked like I was about to be interrogated. The nurse left. I had the service bot pour them tea and greeted them politely. "Thank you for coming to see me, Mr. and Mrs. Cole. Please have a seat." Arthur sneered. "Do you really think we're here to visit you?" Glenn was the first to attack. "Sam Brown, you took $20 million from me and promised to never see Tim again. You broke our contract." I wasn't offended. "Let me clarify 2 things for you. First, Tim was the one who followed me. I never pursued him. Second, if you believe I've broken our contract, you can sue me and let the law decide. Glenn's voice rose. Don't think you can just bewitch Tim and marry into the Cole family. We will not allow a lowly beta to taint our bloodline. Tim's father, Warren, cut in softly. Watch your words. Don't lose your composure. Glenn huffed in annoyance. Warren had a gentler demeanor. He spoke in a negotiating tone. Sam, we were very pleased with the care you gave Tim these past 3 years. As a personal aide, you were perfect. But you are not the ideal person for our son to marry. Tim is an S+ alpha. His superior genes must be passed on. An outstanding heir will secure his position in the family. If you truly love him and want what's best for him, you should step aside and let him be with someone who can give him superior offspring. As he said the last sentence, he gave a pointed look at William, who immediately puffed out his chest with pride. Arthur chimed in. Even if a beta could get pregnant, you couldn't guarantee an S+ alpha. The Coles are a prestigious family. Without an alpha son, you'll never have a foothold. Sam, just stop being stubborn. Back down. It's better for everyone. My smile was cold. Anyone can say that to me, but you, Mr. Brown, have the least right. You knew my grandpa was a beta, but you still pursued my dad. Did you never consider that my dad might have a beta child? Who was it that ruined someone's life for their own selfish desires? You. Arthur was fuming, but with the Coles present, he held back. William saw his chance and jumped in. Brother, how can you talk to father like that? If it weren't for him and dad, you wouldn't even exist. If father hadn't helped, you would have been sold off by creditors long ago. I turned to him, my face blank. William, are you really that stupid? Or are you just pretending? Your father helped my dad with his debt because he owed him. And that debt was cleared the moment I took your place at the Cole estate. You refused to take care of Tim back then, but now that he's awake, you're here to steal the credit. A selfish piece of work like you has no right to lecture me. After I said my piece, everyone's face turned ugly. Glenn furiously questioned Arthur. Arthur, you told us your younger son was too frail to take care of Tim. Were you lying to us? Arthur was both ashamed and angry. Mr. Cole, that's not it. Don't listen to his nonsense. Uncle Glenn, I really wasn't well at the time. It's not that I didn't want to go. Where were you unwell? I said coolly. Your annual health reports are all on record. You threw a fit, threatening to kill yourself if you had to go to the Cole estate. Shut up. Arthur finally exploded, slapping me across the face. I stumbled into the coffee table. Tea spilled, and cups tumbled onto the carpet. Forgetting his decorum, Arthur roared, "You cursed thing. If you dare to be with Tim, I'll break your legs." A commanding male voice came from the doorway. Who's going to break my husband's legs? Tim stood there in his full military uniform, the brim of his cap pulled low, a black cape draped over his shoulders. He looked magnificent and imposing, his face dark, like a handsome, wrathful demon. As Tim strode into the room, his powerful presence silenced everyone. I had known him for a while, but this was the first time I'd seen him look so murderous. Even Glenn and Warren seemed diminished in front of their son. Glenn called out cautiously, "Son." Tim helped me up, his brow furrowed as he gently touched my swollen cheek. "Who hit you?" His voice was so cold it could freeze the world. I stared pointedly at Arthur, my eyes accusing him. Tim slowly turned, his gaze locking onto Arthur with pure fury. Fear flashed across Arthur's face, and he instinctively took a step back. Tim suddenly grabbed his wrist. Arthur cried out in pain. Without blinking, Tim lifted Arthur off the ground with one hand. "General, please, calm down," Arthur pleaded. William covered his mouth, shrinking back in terror. Glenn and Warren rushed to intervene. "Son, let him go." "Tim, that's Sam's father." Tim turned his head and asked me, "Is he your father?" My voice was firm. "He's a sperm donor. I have a dad, not a father." Tim tossed Arthur aside in disgust. Arthur collapsed next to the sofa. He trembled, clutching his wrist, unable to get up. I guess Tim had used his pheromones to suppress him, because both Arthur and Warren were breathing heavily, unable to look him in the eye. Glenn and William were also trembling with fear. So this was the power of an S+ alpha. Good thing I can't smell pheromones. Tim summoned the service bot and had it bring an ice pack. He completely ignored the other 4 people in the room. Glenn finally broke the silence. Son, you can't be with this beta. While you were in a coma, it was William who took care of you tirelessly. We can't be ungrateful. To get Tim to marry William, he was willing to lie through his teeth. Without looking up, Tim said, Dad, you should really have a proper talk with my doctor. Do you think I was completely unconscious all that time? It was like a bomb had gone off. Everyone was stunned. Even I hadn't thought of that. Glenn stammered, What do you mean? Tim pulled me closer. Exactly what it sounds like. I know perfectly well who was taking care of me all those years. Don't think I can't find out just because you altered the security footage. Glenn's face was flushed with embarrassment. He had nothing to say. Warren, not giving up, tried again. Sam did work hard taking care of you, but we hired him for that. When it comes to choosing a marriage partner, you need someone who is your equal. Tim was unmoved. I love Sam. Even if he wasn't the one who took care of me these past 3 years, I would still marry him. Is that clear enough for you? Glenn wouldn't have it. He started pleading with him, repeating the same arguments they had used on me earlier. The main point was that I wasn't good enough for Tim. Tim had had enough. He pulled up a red stamped document on his terminal. He read aloud, For his heroic actions in rescuing 2 children from a swarm attack and providing critical intelligence, Sam Brown of Z Village has demonstrated immense bravery in the defense of the Empire. In recognition of his outstanding contributions, the Imperial government will award Sam Brown the highest honor, the Imperial Star. Tim had mentioned this to me on our video call yesterday. I didn't want to be the center of attention, so I was planning on receiving the medal privately. Glenn and the others were dumbfounded. Tim smiled triumphantly. The Grand Marshal himself is presenting it. Sam wanted to keep it low-key, but since you all keep saying he's not worthy, I'm going to make the award ceremony a massive public event. I want the whole galaxy to know my husband and what he did to earn this honor. Throughout the Empire's history, you could count the number of civilians who had received the Imperial Star on one hand. And someone my age? It was unprecedented. I suspected the Grand Marshal's decision was also partly a favor to Tim. This medal wasn't just for show. The Empire had a comprehensive welfare system. Medal recipients received a special monthly stipend, were treated with the highest honors when they traveled, and even their descendants would benefit. Warren was the first to react. Is this real? You can watch the news reports to see if it's real. Oh, and Tim announced mysteriously, there's one more important piece of news. What news? Just tell us. Glenn pressed. Tim opened his wrist comm and contacted my doctor. Dr. Peter, could you come here for a moment? Dr. Peter hurried over. Tim gestured to him. Dr. Peter pulled up my medical report and said seriously, yes, the ultrasound shows 2 gestational sacs in Mr. Brown's reproductive cavity. Both sacs have fetal poles and heartbeats. The diagnosis is 4 weeks early-stage pregnancy. Early-stage pregnancy? Took me a moment to process the news. I looked down at my stomach in disbelief, my hand covering it. I'm pregnant. With twins? For weeks. That was when Tim was in his rut. I got pregnant the very first time? Arthur and William looked like they could swallow an ostrich egg. Glenn and Warren thought Dr. Peter was in on a scheme with Tim to trick them. Dr. Peter swore, I've been a doctor for 20 years. Why would I joke about something so serious? If you don't believe me, you can look at Mr. Brown's medical chart. Glenn still couldn't accept it. But he's a beta. Dr. Peter explained, Mr. Brown's physiology is quite unique. His reproductive cavity is very well developed. Among betas, he would be considered highly fertile. Warren muttered to himself, yes, his dad was an omega. It's not surprising he's fertile. Glenn was both thrilled and worried. Tim picked up the conversation. Even if he's a beta, he's still my treasure, and they're my children. I'll love them myself. Glenn and Warren exchanged a look. Warren sighed softly and nodded at him. They both looked resigned to their fate. Arthur, seeing which way the wind was blowing, immediately sidled up to congratulate me. I completely ignored him. Tim kicked them out. All right, my husband needs to rest. If there's nothing else, you can leave. After the unwanted guests were gone, it was just the two of us. My feelings were a mess. When did you find out? When? Dr. Peter told me a few days ago. I wanted to surprise you, so I didn't say anything. I'm not talking about the pregnancy. I cut him off. When did you realize I was the one who had been taking care of you all this time? Oh, that? Tim wrapped his arms around me and began his story. Those 3 years I was in bed, I was actually semi-conscious. Especially from the second year on, I started to gradually regain awareness. But I couldn't move or speak, and my vision was blurry. My hearing, however, recovered very well. I heard you singing, reading poetry, telling stories. I heard it all. But my memory was damaged, so I'd forget quickly. I always thought I was dreaming. So when I woke up and they told me William was taking care of me, I didn't doubt it. Until that day, I ran into you by the elevator. A warmth spread through my chest. You recognized me then? No. Tim shrugged. I glared at him, annoyed, but he quickly took my hand and kissed it. I didn't recognize you, but it was love at first sight. I was thinking, how can someone be so perfectly my type? This person must have been born to be my husband. I snatched my hand back, flustered. Love at first sight? You were just horny. I admit it. I was lusting after your body. He confessed without batting an eye. But they told me you were a beta, and I couldn't marry a beta. I was pissed. I'll marry whoever I want. I don't care if they're a beta or an omega. Then the more I looked at William, the more something felt off. I tested him a little and realized he was lying to me, which made me even more pissed. He kept rambling. The night of the engagement party, I was so frustrated. I don't know how, but I remembered that the person who took care of me when I was unconscious used to take me to the greenhouse. So I went there and then I found you. The moment you spoke, I recognized your voice. I was pretty sure then that the person who stayed with me for 3 years was you. So I decided to elope with you. Pinched his cheek, annoyed. So you've been this cunning all along. I was so naive, thinking Tim was some innocent rich kid. This guy was a military genius. If he set his mind to conquering me, I never stood a chance. Can't get a husband without being a little cunning, he said through gritted teeth. The feeling of being played like a fiddle was frustrating. If you knew everything, why didn't you say so earlier? I demanded. Tim rubbed his cheek. I had to be sure of your feelings. If you weren't interested in me at all, I couldn't just force you. Of course, I wouldn't have given up easily. I would have done whatever it took to win you over. His words hit me right in the heart. My eyes welled up, and a lump formed in my throat. So, there was someone who cared about what I thought. I was worthy of respect. Tim had done so much for me, even going against his own parents. I thought of my dad, who died so young. I felt both lucky and sad. We had similar fates, but my dad ended up abandoned by a scumbag. Meeting Tim must have been my dad's way of watching over me from beyond. Tim wrapped his arms around my waist, whining playfully. Come on, baby, just say yes. I've taken care of all your worries. What else is holding you back? I rolled my eyes. I'm already pregnant with your kids. What choice do I have? Tim pulled me into a passionate kiss, murmuring husband over and over again. Epilogue. With the official media pushing the story, my being awarded the Imperial Star became the hottest topic in the galaxy for a while. 22 years old, a beta, fought the swarm, received the highest level medal, and was the Major General's fiancé. I had all the buffs. I was branded an outstanding beta and even inducted into the Hall of Fame. 2 months after receiving the medal, Tim and I had a grand wedding. 6 months later, the time came and I gave birth to twin boys, 1 beta, 1 alpha. The whole Cole family celebrated. Tim loved both boys equally, and often even favored the beta baby. As for the Browns, Arthur tried to use my connection to Tim to marry William off into another powerful family. But William refused. He was still obsessed with stealing Tim from me, constantly plotting behind the scenes. He bribed our nanny to try and harm me and the kids. But the nanny turned on him and exposed his plot. Tim was furious. He had William exiled to a remote, undeveloped planet, never to return. Arthur didn't get a happy ending either. His arrogance led to his downfall, and his cousin eventually took over as the head of the family. After the kids started preschool, I went back to my art career. I also got involved in beta rights activism and charity work, creating platforms for artistically talented betas to showcase their skills. After the lockdown on Z Village was lifted, the local government used me as a selling point to heavily promote the murals. Tourists flocked to see them, and it became a tourist hotspot. Even Devil's Horn Cave became a popular attraction. Even though I married Tim, I didn't lose myself. Instead, I continued to shine in my own field.